All right. Excess workers' compensation insurance. This is for a catastrophic claim. Do we have any questions on this? All right. Moving on then, that completes our purchases. Do we want to, well, we can we'll finish these things up, I guess, and we'll get to the financial statement in a second. The order of trustee election, do we have any questions about this? All the voting sites and all of that listed in the county. And the times of the early voting.
I have a question there.
Mr. George, go ahead.
I know Fort Bend County is enacted on polling in the last day, election day, you could vote any polling location. That's applicable to this election too, right?
Well, Toby, do you know that? He's asking about the election centers. Does that apply?
Yeah, I was asking Fort Bend County, right now on a pilot program to provide, on election day, you could vote at any polling location. In the past, you had to go to your own precinct. So in this election, it's applicable, I assume.
That's exactly right.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any questions or changes? Thank you, Mr. Wilbanks. Do you have any questions or changes about to the minutes? From our January meetings? All right, and I'm going to go back to the item that we skipped earlier, and that's the financial statement. Ending December 31st, so that's on page 6 of your, for those of you, we're on the financial statement, which is at the beginning of our agenda packet. Do we have any questions or comments?
Yes.
Mr. Rice.
Mr. Bassett, I'm looking at the general fund, and I'm not understanding this $9.3 million deficit. Can you help me understand that?
Yes, sir. From a budgeted perspective, remember we passed a budget that had a small deficit, 2.5 million. What happens after that is whenever we had our first budget amendment, we bring in the rolled POs, the POs from the year before that we elect to roll over, which is something we typically do each year. That was approved by the board in the October budget amendment. But we are on track to have a surplus in the current year. Our forecast is still very solid for the general fund. But again, remember the budget is the authorization to spend money. It's not necessarily what we think is actually going to happen.
Okay. Then the other thing I was noticing, if I look at our local revenue and our state revenue, and I divide each one of those by the total budget, am I understanding that our local tax base providing 58% of our budget exclusive of the federal program revenue?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely more.
And 41% for the state.
That sounds about right. So I mean we're definitely having more of a local share, and there's no doubt about it, and that'll continue to go up as our property values increases, our local collections increase.
Okay. And then in our fund balance, we've committed $53 million, almost 54, just as a hedge against loss of state funding?
Well, the 46.7 of that is for the loss of state funding. We
Right.
have a few other amounts there, the textbooks, transportation, new
and
schools.
startup at the school. Got it. Okay. Thank you.
And when we bring numbers back in terms of numbers for the coming year, we'll show you what we're thinking with regard to the use of the fund balance.
Okay. Then on food service, we've got a $5 million surplus there. The federal government fixes our school lunch cost, and then we run a tight ship, so we've got a surplus there.
Yeah, there's a fund balance, and we started the year of 5.2 million, and we're expecting to be breaking even this year.
Break even,
Mhm.
Meaning we'll keep that 5 million, right?
Yes.
so we'll still have the 5 million
Yes,
fund
sir.
balance. Okay.
Yes.
Will it grow, or?
No, I'm not anticipating it growing. I
Okay.
mean, we have we have an issue that's going to be part of my discussion next time. I'll just give you a little bit of a preview. Since we're talking about it, but one of the things that we're having difficulty with, and we'll be bringing this as part of our policy suggestions for CO, and that's we need to improve our collections on the child nutrition. Okay, we've really been there's quite a trend, and right now we're expecting our uncollectibles this year to go over $400,000. And so there's a lot going on with that. It's been steadily increasing since I think some discussion some time ago, well before Mr. Cleaver and I were here when we were talking about alternative meals, or not alternative meals, but the fact is that a lot of people are basically just blowing off their collections. So we have to get a little bit more aggressive with that, and part of the reason why that causes additional stress is that those amounts can't be absorbed by law by the Child Nutrition Fund. It has to be absorbed by the general fund.
Wow.
And then it's also affecting our free and reduced counts, which
Okay.
affects revenue. So it's a deep thing. We'll have some slides that'll show you those trends and
Are you
what
thinking
we plan
about
on doing about it.
issuing a card, like a debit card to all the students or something like that?
Well, I mean, they have their accounts, and they are be able to provide those accounts and replenish them online.
Okay.
So we work really hard to try to make receiving money as easy as possible.
You all do a good job of sending that little envelope at home saying that your child owes money.
Thank you, Mrs. Helliger, for putting money in that envelope and returning it.
I did it today.
Maybe we need to hand deliver those with some scary people.
And on debt service, I'm not understanding that deficit, 2.6?
So I mean, that's just through the year.
Okay.
I mean, where we're at. I mean, we're still expecting that. This is just 6 months of actual data.
Okay,
So
we're okay there.
we're in solid shape on the debt service fund.
All right, thank you.
Okay. I'm glad to know somebody's looking at these. Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other questions? I actually do have a question, because I'm looking at it too.
Great.
And that is on the health insurance fund. That's showing, I read it, that maybe has a deficit as well.
Yes, ma'am. So this is the one I mentioned last week, was if there was an area of concern in the financials. Right now, that's really my only area of concern. What we saw in recent years, when you look at the trends for health spending, you see a little bit of an increase in the October timeframe, but then it starts to track back down November, December, January. Well, right now, that's not happening, not for this current year, and I'm trying to figure out why. And so we've been talking to our consultant, and we're going to have to talk with our benefits committee about perhaps being a little bit more aggressive on some of the strategies that we've been talking about. But if that trend doesn't turn around, we may have to have a premium increase when we're trying not to. And so I am alarmed about the health fund right now. Okay.
All right. Thank you for sharing that. Mr. Verdine.
Can you say that one more time again about the healthcare? So at this time of year, generally, the trend is going down as far as claims?
In terms of utilization, okay? I mean, what'll happen is that you'll have a lot of claims, and people, before the end of the year, they'll have things done, and then, the payouts will be later into the September, October timeframe, but then things will drop off from there. And so next time I'll do a financial briefing, I'll just show you that slide. It's real easy to see just how the trend and how consistent it's been in the past, but we're not seeing that drop off after October, and which we've seen in the past. So it looks like utilization is higher than it's been, and so that's a problem.
So how long generally is it from when a person receives service from the doctor and we actually get charged? Is that like a 2 or 3 or 4 months, or?
I mean, it can be that long to adjudicate claims. Okay, some are quicker than others. The folks on the network certainly are quicker. They get paid quicker than others who may not be on the network.
My wife's in the medical industry, and so they always have a busy time of the year. At the end of the year, people want to, get in their deal. So
Yeah, flexible spending accounts, sure.
yeah, I know, or just meeting deductibles, but someone like myself that's self-insured that has to pay for my own health insurance, being that there's changes with Blue Cross Blue Shield and how that worked out, I don't know if this has anything to do with anyone else, but we went to the doctor as much as we could because we no longer were going to have our doctor after January 1st.
Oh, okay.
So we had to get whole new doctors and kind of a sad story, but I don't know if that's with a lot of folks that maybe have spouses that I don't know.
I mean,
I'm just saying.
that could be. I mean, the 2015, we were using United Healthcare for the
Right.
first time in many years, and so because the network is different, maybe that is causing a change in our utilization. I mean, I've talked with these guys about coming up with some answers
Yeah.
on what's driving that, so we can communicate that with the benefits committee. But we are going to be talking about that and what we can do to try to improve.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. George.
Yeah, I have a quick question about comparison of yield investment income.
Okay.
And I see that, the 3 months, 6 months T-bill, the full average and Fort Bend ISD, I don't know which page it is.
The number 10, page 10?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And my question to you is that I'm just curious. Our return is at least close to 15 basis points less than the T-bill, the short-term T-bill, which is maybe. I'm trying to understand.
Are you talking about so I mean, this chart showing that our return is higher than the 3-month T-bill. And
No,
it's
okay.
it's higher than all of them except the 6 months.
6 months.
Which did just, jump up because of the rate change, and we're trying to catch up on that.
Got it wrong. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Sure, sure.
I thought the other way. So, thank you.
All right, do we have any other questions about the financial statement? Thank you, Mr. Bassett, very much. Thank you for preparing that, and we'll look forward to our upcoming budget conversations. Our next item on the agenda is the audience response to our agenda review items. So we have 3 speakers tonight, and each of you will have 3 minutes to share your response to our any of the items that on the agenda that we've talked about. And so our first speaker tonight is Kathy Aaron. Well, I mean, if you want to go in a different order, that's fine. Just say your name so we know.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening. My name is Cindy Blatzer. I'm a reading recovery teacher of 21 years. I've been teaching for 35 years. 21 of those have been in Fort Bend. And I'd like to give you some additional information as to what was shared this evening. Tonight a number was given that 50% of the students that receive reading recovery are successful. And that number is accurate as far as the total number of children that are served in the program, but it's not a true reflection of what's happening. So we have, the way the school year is structured, we have 36 weeks of school. First 2 weeks of school, we are testing and identifying our students. The day after Labor Day, we start lessons. Lessons go from 12 to 20 weeks. So every child that we get, now I'm getting shaky, every child that we get coming in comes in at a different place. Some children come in knowing all their letters and their names, and they can read a few words. Some children don't come in with that much. They don't come in, so their start point is different. Those children typically take longer to get through the program. Children who come in with more information, we can get out in those 12 weeks. Well, 12 weeks puts you around Thanksgiving. Okay, so that puts you around Thanksgiving. So then we get what we call our second round starts to come in. Those second round children, we can get them out usually 12 to, but now we don't have 20 weeks left, so the kids that we get out like at Christmas time or the beginning of the school year, we don't have 20 weeks left. So those children don't get a full program. Right now, we are in our 20th week right now. So we will start testing. I discontinued a child right after Christmas. I discontinued a child about 2 weeks ago. I've already filled those slots. This week we'll test, and I'll get the next 2 out. We'll get 2 more in, okay? By April, I could have those 4 kids out, and I would get some more kids. I've got a few weeks left at the end of the year to where I pull kids in, even though I know they're not going to get a full program. We utilize the time all the way up until the second week of May. At the end of the year, I have to write a report. In that report, I put in all the kids who discontinued successfully, all the kids who had a full program, all the kids who were recommended action. They did not discontinue. I have to include the children who moved. Last year, I had a student who came in. He was at our school for 2 weeks. I saw him for those 2 weeks, but he
30
counted in my
seconds.
numbers. That's it. So thank you for your time. It's just that number didn't really reflect the true picture.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for sharing. Can you tell me how to spell your last name? I need to get that before we go, but that's all right. That's all right. We'll get your last name. I need to get your last name before we.
It's Blatzer.
Blatzer.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, so which of you is next? She wasn't on my list, so I've got Kathy Aaron, I've got Stacy Borman, and I've got Colleen McMenemy.
Call my name, I guess I'll go.
Okay, tell me your name.
I'm Kathy Aaron.
Okay.
Good evening, Dr. Dupree. I already said good evening to you already once. And the board members, I'm a taxpayer, and I've been at this microphone many times. I have 41 years in education. 31 of those years were spent here in Fort Bend ISD. I was Director of Testing and Evaluation and spent many years in this boardroom. I'd like to address, obviously, the matter of reading recovery. I spent my prepared remarks I have sent to the board members. I don't need to go over the program. You've heard excellent presentation tonight about the reading recovery program, what it covers, what programs have, or what program is being proposed for next year. The reading recovery program has been longstanding in Fort Bend ISD and is quoted in the literature as the best evidence yet of a direct link between good instruction and educational excellence. The goal of the Reading Recovery Program obviously is to reduce the number of first grade students who have extreme difficulty in learning to read at a reduced cost of these learners to the educational system, which is a direct link to the board's core beliefs, number 1, number 2A, and number 2D. It's a short-term program of early intervention planned to design to prevent a cycle of failure. As the administration has said, they've spent the last 2 years evaluating the impact of the Reading Recovery Program at Fort Bend ISD. When I was in the evaluation department, I also spent many years evaluating the program from its inception in 1994 through the time when I retired in 2008. And I can tell you that I've read many statistical studies of the program when I was in charge of evaluating it. and I have seen different statistics than some of the ones that were presented to you tonight. And I do know that there's a wealth of data that has been collected on reading recovery over the years. And I would suggest that perhaps the administration go back and do some more due
30
diligence
seconds. 30 seconds.
on the report. Also, I would question on some of the programs that have been presented to you tonight as far as the way they've been presented. There may be some seeds of some excellence in the programs presented, but I agree with the board's members' stance that a pilot is recommended so that we have a quality program if something is to replace reading recovery. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. And also, if you have some materials you want to give us, if you can give that to Mrs. Porter. Did you say that you had something you wanted to give us? Or no, you already?
have it.
We already have.
I sent it to you.
Thank you. All right, you're next. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Stacy Borman, and I'm speaking to you with the passion of a parent of a former reading recovery student, but also with the knowledge of being a current administrator on an elementary campus. And I've got to say, I'm deeply saddened by the possibility of reading recovery being discontinued in this district, because it is a program that works, and I know that from firsthand knowledge. It's research-based. It's an effective Tier 3 intervention. This is much like getting a medical procedure like a CAT scan. Tier 3 is where you go to really get answers to see if something works, or do you need a further program. Much like you spoke about your daughter, it didn't work for your daughter, but I beg to differ. I think it did, because you found out that you needed something different. So it does work. It provides an intervention. And it's a short, this short-term intervention can have a lasting impact, and it can be life-changing. And I had a wise boss a while back who said, facts fade and stories stick. So I'd like to share my daughter's story. In her own words, she said, I remember vividly my worried mother, and I'm sorry, I'll probably get emotional because I'm very passionate about this. I remember vividly my worried mother hugging me goodbye outside my first grade classroom. I was determined not to let go, but soon enough she was gone. Within minutes of my mom being gone, I was handed an Excel math worksheet. I remember staring down at the math problems and not even be able to start one because I could not read anything. Talk about intimidating. I felt like I had been thrown to a pack of wolves. Who would have known that a first grade class could be so overwhelmingly vicious and intimidating? A few weeks went by and I knew I was failing first grade. No one had to tell me that. I just knew it down to my core. And I remember my mom working with me on spelling words at the kitchen table, and I didn't even know how to spell basic words like am, it, be, and I. I felt lonely, stupid, and most of all, defeated. And then I remember Ms. Blatzer, my reading recovery teacher. An angel was sent from heaven to help me. She took me for 30 minutes every day to work on my reading. We started off slowly, and I gradually started to learn. My grades started to soar and improve, and by the end of the year, I was reading on grade level. She wrote this when she was a junior at Clemens High School. She was a straight-A student on the varsity tennis team. 4 years later, she's at Abilene Christian University on an academic scholarship, playing Division I tennis with straight A's in the nursing program. This program works.
Thank you, Ms. Borman, for sharing. Is Ms. McMenamy here? She's left? Okay. All right, so those are all the speakers we have for tonight. And I believe that concludes our agenda, so we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Meeting is adjourned.